Test. Can we hear? I don't know, chat, can you hear me? Can you hear me, chat? You heard me? I know, but is the volume actually working? Okay, I'm muting this. Okay, we're good. Okay, now do you want to yell?
All right, listen up, please.
Thank you so much.
Okay, wow, good crowd. First, we would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Algonquin people, who are the traditional guardians of this land and the waters that surround it. We acknowledge their long-standing relationship with this territory, which remains unceded. We pay respect to all Indigenous people in this region from all nations across Canada who call Ottawa home, and we acknowledge their traditional knowledge keepers, both young and old, and honor their courageous leaders, past, present, and future.
Okay, on va commencer avec la reconnaissance de territoire. Nous tenons à souligner que les terres sur lesquelles nous sommes rassemblés font partie du territoire traditionnel non cédé de la nation algonquine Anishinaabe. Nous rendons hommage au peuple algonquin, gardien traditionnel de cette terre. Nous rendons également hommage à toutes les personnes autochtones qui habitent Ottawa, qu'elles soient de la région ou d'ailleurs au Canada. Nous reconnaissons les gardiennes et gardiens des savoirs traditionnels de tout âge, ainsi que les inéquités systémiques présentes découlant de la colonisation. Can everyone hear? Vous pouvez tous ensemble?
Online, are we good online? We can hear you, yay, okay, that's good. That's first base. Okay, yeah, like I said before, thanks everyone for gathering here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Andrew. I'm the co-editor-in-chief at the Fulcrum, the University of Ottawa's independent English language student newspaper. It's so nice to be back in person to debate a well-contested election. We all have our part to play to increase voter participation in student governance and elections, including us at student newspapers. For the Fulcrum in La Rotonde, as many of you know, it's been a tough or rough few years, going fully online, then the pandemic, then Bill C-18 shutting down our Instagram accounts. Last year, we organized the first in-person debate, from what I can tell, in the history of UOSU. This year, we're back, thankfully outside of the dark depths of the Fulcrum's basement at 631 King Edward. So we have room for a couple more people. Apparently, we should have got a bigger room, but we'll know for next time. I would like to thank Camille, who stands beside me, and her team at La Rotonde for organizing this debate, alongside us, Ben Cameron, who sits on my left, the OSU's Chief Electoral Officer, for helping us book this room, because we know that admin isn't too friendly with that lately, and keeping us informed of the election news, because there's been a fair bit this one. And of course, Jack Cohen and Suzanne Gruz, who agreed to debate without hesitation and without knowing the full format a bit more than a week ago. Sydney, the managing editor at the Fulcrum. Sydney, can you wave your hand? Sydney is going to pass out sticky notes and pens after Camille talks for the audience question period at the end of the debate. Please, as Camille is switching to Ben speaking, please just raise your hand and she'll pass one down your aisle with a pen.
And then once you're done writing the questions up here, just hand them to me.
And last thing, please just try to keep quiet and refrain from any applause or chalking or jeering or throwing tomatoes or anything like that. And finally, I'll stop talking because nobody wants me to keep talking. To the candidates, good luck. I have trust that neither of you will pull a Biden and do so bad that your party replaces you before the election, but there's always a second time for everything, so we'll see.
Merci tout le monde d'être ici. Moi, c'est Camille, je suis la rédactrice en chef de La Rotonde, votre journal étudiant francophone. Donc, comme l'a dit Andrew, c'est vraiment super. On est content de pouvoir refaire ce débat cette année, de vous voir aussi nombreux et nombreuses. On est désolé du manque de chaises, de ceux qui sont debout. Donc, pour un peu le petit programme, on va commencer par écouter Ben Cameron, donc le directeur des élections du syndicat. C'est ça le titre officiel? Ouais. Qui va nous parler un peu, j'imagine, du processus électoral. Et puis, pour rappel, le vote sera du 4 au 8 février prochain. Puis, on va écouter Ève Tremblay, qui se présente au poste de commissaire aux affaires francophones, qui va nous parler de sa candidature. Ensuite, on va passer au débat présidentiel. Donc, on a deux journalistes de La Rotonde, Lee et Tom, et deux journalistes du Fulcrum, Isabelle et Sydney, qui vont s'alterner pour poser des questions dans les deux langues pendant à peu près 40 minutes. Donc, s'il vous plaît, on vous demande de répondre dans la langue dans laquelle la question est posée, sauf pour l'introduction et la conclusion, où vous pouvez répondre dans la langue de votre choix ou les langues de votre choix. Pour chaque question, vous aurez un maximum de 3 minutes, chacune pour répondre et éventuellement rebondir sur la réponse de l'autre. Et puis, les journalistes vont pouvoir vous faire signe, ou tu vas faire signe, actually, pour le temps, pour dire quand votre temps va bientôt être écoulé. Et puis après cela, on aura, comme a dit Andrew, 20 minutes dédiées aux questions du public, à la fois en personne grâce aux petits post-it et puis en ligne. Donc les modérateurs vont choisir les questions les plus pertinentes. Et puis c'est pas mal ça. Vous pouvez écrire aussi les questions sur le chat YouTube ou le chat Instagram directement. Donc merci tout le monde d'être là et bon débat. Je passe la parole à Ben.
Hello, hello. Bonsoir à tous et à toutes et merci d'être ici. Je m'appelle Ben Cameron, je suis directeur général des élections à CUO. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Ben Cameron. I'm good? Okay. I'm Chief Electoral Officer here at UOSU. I'm very excited that all of you are here on this Monday night to watch our first election debate in over a year. I'm sure it's going to be a good one. Before we get to it, I would like to thank the Fulcrum in La Rotonde for organizing everything. As they said, all I did was book the room. Je suis très heureux que vous soyez ici ce lundi soir pour assister à notre premier débat depuis plus d'1 an. Je suis sûr que ce sera un bon débat. Mais avant de commencer, je voudrais remercier le Fulcrum, The Fulcrum et la Rotonde d'avoir organisé ce débat. Les élections sont au cœur du travail du CUO en tant qu'organisation représentative des étudiants de premier cycle à l'Université d'Ottawa. Comme vous le savez, nous avons eu du mal à faire participer les étudiants et à les impliquer. Mais un débat dans le cadre d'une élection présidentielle contestée est un bon début. Maintenant, la raison pour laquelle vous êtes tous ici, il y a des candidats vraiment formidables et très passionnés qui sont là pour présenter leur vision, leurs idées, leurs buts. Je suis content qu'ils se soient présentés. Comme beaucoup d'entre vous le savent, il n'est pas facile de se présenter à une élection et cela demande beaucoup d'humilité. Elections are at the heart of UOSU's work as the representative body of undergrad students at UOttawa. As I'm sure you all know, we've had some trouble with engaging our students, and a debate in a contested presidential election is a pretty good start. And we have some really great candidates to showcase their vision, their ideas, and their goals tonight. And I'm so pleased that they were able to present themselves in the election. Running is not easy and can be quite humbling. Finally, voting opens tonight at midnight. Please vote and you have until Saturday to also get your friends to vote. Je voudrais rappeler à tout le monde que le vote sera ouvert à minuit ce soir et que vous avez la chance jusqu'à samedi pour convaincre tous vos amis de voter eux aussi. Bonne chance, good luck, happy debating et bon débat.
Bon, ben, salut tout le monde. Merci à tous et à toutes d'être venus ce soir. Je m'appelle Ève Tremblay, puis comme ils l'ont mentionné, je me présente au poste de commissaire aux affaires francophones pour le syndicat étudiant. Je suis une fière franco-ontarienne, puis j'étudie en français ici à l'Université d'Ottawa. Puis même si j'adore la communauté qu'on a, je pense vraiment qu'on peut travailler pour améliorer la visibilité, l'accessibilité et le dynamisme de la communauté francophone ici à l'université. Pour ce faire, un des grands points de ma plateforme, je veux vraiment revendiquer pour plus de cours en français, surtout au niveau 3000 et 4000. Je veux aussi vraiment être à l'écoute des étudiants. Je veux ouvrir les tables rondes francophones pour inviter les leaders francophones et aussi les étudiants francophones et francophiles qui veulent plus s'engager dans la communauté étudiante. Je veux aussi bâtir des relations et les entretenir avec les organismes francophones de la région. On en a tellement à Ottawa comme l'ACFO, l'AFO, parce que je pense vraiment que ça donnerait des belles opportunités aux étudiants. And although I'm running for a Francophone position, I really want to emphasize that I want everyone to feel welcome in our spaces. I really want to push for better bilingualism on campus and within the union. So I want to increase funding for clubs who respect the bilingual policy, and I also want to standardize the bilingual assessment of UOSU employees, especially the ones who have direct contact with students, just because I want students to be able to reach out to us in the language of their choice. Donc vraiment, c'est un aperçu bref de ma plateforme. Je sais qu'on est surtout ici pour le débat présidentiel, donc je ne vais pas prendre trop de votre temps. Si vous voulez plus de détails, vous pouvez aller voir mon compte Instagram, c'est ftremblay.seu.uosu. J'aurais aimé ça débattre, mais en tout cas, je vais rester jusqu'à la fin du débat s'il y a des gens qui ont des questions ou des suggestions. So just to quickly recap that, I know that we're here for the presidential debate. I'm not going to take too much of your time. But if you want more details on my platform, you can check out my Instagram, ftremblay.seu.uosu, and I will also be sticking around after the debate if anybody has any questions or suggestions. Merci et bon débat.
Merci à Eve pour son discours et on va maintenant enchaîner à l'introduction des candidats et puis le débat. Donc, bienvenue à nos candidats. Je pense qu'on va prendre un peu comme un moment pour nos candidats. Est-ce que...
You guys are welcome to come up.
Yeah.
Both of our presidential candidates.
Ok, super. Donc, bienvenue à nos candidates et candidats. On va commencer avec une introduction faite par vous deux dans la langue de votre choix ou même dans les deux langues. Vous aurez chacun et chacune 2 minutes à le faire. Et puis, Jacques, tu vas commencer. On va maintenant faire en anglais.
So welcome to both of our candidates. It's great to have you guys here. We're just going to start off with a little introduction. You both have 2 minutes in the language of your choice or both to just give us a bit of an introduction on yourself. Jack, if you'd like to start.
Sorry, ici.
I think there's like 5 live streams, so just use the microphone.
Pavel, je suis bien commencer. All right, bonjour tout le monde. Hi everybody. Mon nom est Jack Cohen. My name is Jack Cohen. Et je me présente pour la présidence du syndicat des étudiants de l'Université d'Ottawa. Avant qu'on commence, j'aimerais beaucoup remercier vous les étudiants qui ont pris le temps de regarder ce débat. Un des plus gros problèmes que notre syndicat a, c'est le manque de participation et c'est vraiment notre faute, mais on apprécie beaucoup que vous avez pris le temps de votre soirée pour être ici avec nous. J'aimerais aussi remercier la Rotonde et le Fulcrum pour avoir mis en place cet événement extraordinaire. C'est tellement important pour notre démocratie étudiante. Et j'aimerais aussi remercier Eve et certainement Suzanne aussi pour avoir pris le temps. La période de campagne, je sais, est tellement chargée et c'est débattre. Moi-même, je suis très anxieux à cause de ça. Alors, merci beaucoup pour prendre le temps aujourd'hui. For the last year and a half, I've served as the deputy to the president and the chief of staff in the UOSU's executive office. And during that time, I have seen huge positive changes for the union. Whether that's the highest level of club funding ever, whether that's a new emergency hardship fund that's helping students all across campus, whether or not that's new scholarships, whether or not that's advocacy that helped freeze the proposed UPass hike, and halved the proposed deferral fees. We have come a long way in what we're able to do for students. And I think that it is so important at this time of the year that we keep that momentum going. We've done a lot for clubs. I want to do more. I want to partner with our students in computer science to create a student life app where all clubs and student associations can upload their events so that we're all more connected. I want to introduce more scholarships, both for the volunteers that sort of make our student life go, as well as for our most vulnerable students. And I want to keep up the advocacy and leverage the connections I've built over my time in the UOSU's presidential office to make sure that we can keep advocating for lower costs, for more affordable housing, for the student right to protest, and more. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you to you all being here tonight. I know the weather's not great, so my name is Suzanne Gruz. I'm in my 4th year in economics and political science. Before coming to Ottawa, or more specifically Ottawa in general, I moved here from Germany And in my first year, I actually hated this union because my only interaction with it was it seeing on my statement of account, and I was like, what does this union do for me? I don't know what it even does. But I think my feelings towards this union have changed I've come a long way since then, since I'm obviously standing next to this very respectable candidate tonight. So my first interaction through this union was through volunteering, which I think is such a core part of the union. I think all of our services and truly like the work of the board, I think is really based on a lot of work of volunteers. But I started as a volunteer in the International House, where I found an amazing community, and then I was the coordinator of Foot Patrol, and now the Feminist Resource Center. And I think in all of these positions, I've got to know the most amazing people and interact with a lot of diverse communities on campus, some of which are better and less represented in the student union. So some of my goals, if I'm elected into this position, are to really ensure that the student union is represented and serves all students across all faculties, whether they're Anglophone or Francophone. As I think at the end of the day, every single undergrad pays UOSU fees, whether they want to or not. So I think it is our responsibility, and I think we've come a long way since my first year to serve these students.
Merci aux candidats pour leur introduction. On va maintenant passer aux questions. La première question va être commencée et chacun et chacune de notre candidat va avoir 3 minutes pour répondre. Donc, pour notre population étudiante de plus de 40 000 étudiants au premier cycle, comment comprenez-vous le rôle de président ou de président? Pouvez-vous expliquer aux étudiants les composants principaux de ce rôle? Et Suzanne, tu vas commencer.
D'accord, merci pour la question. Je pense que le rôle de président, c'est vraiment très versatile. Je pense que tu as beaucoup de tâches, que ce soit d'être une représentative de l'organisation. Donc, je pense qu'être représentatif de l'organisation, ça compte des relations avec les médias, de relations avec les gouvernements étudiants qui contribuent à la vie dynamique de nos étudiants sur le campus. Mais je pense qu'aussi, c'est de soutenir l'équipe des commissaires. Bon, en ce moment, on va avoir un peu de travail à faire parce que chaque poste est contesté dans les élections. Mais donc, je pense que c'est vraiment appuyer les autres commissaires dans leur travail, que ce soit le commissaire aux opérations qui doit faire le budget. Que je sais que l'année dernière, c'était vraiment une tâche difficile, mais donc je pense que vraiment le rôle du président, c'est de soutenir le travail des autres, mais aussi de maintenir les relations du syndicat avec les autres organismes, que ce soit l'université, les médias, les gouvernements étudiants, les services du syndicat qui font vraiment vibrer le syndicat, mais aussi les différents clubs. Donc je pense que ce n'est pas une position facile, mais je pense qu'avec l'expérience que j'ai pu acquérir les 2 dernières années en tant que bénévole, mais aussi coordinatrice dans certains services, me prépare vraiment bien pour cette position.
Parfait, merci beaucoup. Et oui, comme Suzanne a dit, la plus importante partie du rôle du président, c'est certainement les relations. Premièrement, c'est les relations avec les autres exécutifs de l'organisation. Quand ça vient à la revendication, c'est supporter nos buts, comme on a l'année dernière, avec le droit aux protestes des étudiants, pour qu'on puisse réduire les frais de retard pour les élèves. Quand ça vient aux opérations, c'est aider à présenter un budget juste, un budget transparent, un budget qui reflète les besoins des étudiants. Quand ça vient à la vie étudiante, c'est tellement important qu'on travaille avec les associations des étudiantes. Dans mes premières années à cette université, on avait des grands problèmes au sein du syndicat quand ça vient aux relations avec les GR, les gouvernements étudiants reconnus, de Telfer à Nursing à IPSA, on a des grands problèmes. Dans l'année dernière, je pense qu'on a eu beaucoup de progrès à améliorer ces relations, mais le travail n'est pas fini. On a besoin de donner plus de support aux associations étudiantes, donc financières, et en de la traduction, les communications, le marketing. L'autre partie très importante quand il vient aux relations gérées par le président, c'est nos relations avec l'administration centrale de l'université. Je suis encore très fier du travail qu'on a fait dans le bureau du président dans l'année dernière à ce sujet, avoir 90 000 d'argent supplémentaire pour notre banque alimentaire qui vient directement de nos relations positives avec l'administration centrale est tellement important. On doit continuer ce travail, mais ceci veut aussi dire qu'on doit on doit dire ce qu'on pense quand l'administration centrale font des erreurs. Comme ça vient quand ils veulent arrêter le droit aux étudiants d'avoir leurs opinions, quand ils vont investir dans les organismes et des compagnies qui ont des effets négatifs sur nos communautés indigènes et sur les communautés dans les zones de conflit tout à travers du globe. On doit les bâtir sur ça, on doit travailler tous ensemble et toute l'équipe de la revendication aux opérations à la vie étudiante pour avoir une vision claire, simple, pour défendre les droits des étudiants. Merci.
So moving on to our first English question. So both of you have expressed a commitment towards climate action. Jack with your support of RBC off campus, and Suzanne with your platform to hold the university accountable for its fossil fuel divestment commitments. Can each of you tell us more about your specific goals and how you will tangibly achieve them? Jack, if you want to start us off.
Absolutely. So I think this is a very important question. We are in a really transitional time when it comes to our relationship with the central administration. Next year, we're going to have a new president of the university, and it is so important that we are there, that the UOSU has the continuity and is there to make sure that that new president is held accountable to the promises that Jacques Clément made in his time here, especially when it comes to climate and divestment. They said they would make their investments transparent, especially around climate. They dragged their feet on it, and even what's available now is not comprehensive. We need to keep the pressure up on that, both on this promise and others, such as the promise for a Safe Scholar program to get students out of harm's way. And then when it comes to their other big promise, which was what they have made to our current president's team, which is that and to the Indigenous Students Association, which is that they will work and renegotiate to make sure that we get our right and that they will not renew RBC's lease on campus when it comes up in 2026. Whoever the president is in 2025, 2026 will have to oversee this important turnover, and we need to hold them to account. We have to make sure that just because Jacques Clément isn't there, that their promise doesn't go unkept. We need to make sure that space gets given back to students. It was only over the pandemic where they took it back, and we need more student spaces. All clubs know that we have insufficient spaces. The room bookings are backed up. The fees are out of this world. We need that space. We need that space, and we cannot see it go back into the hands of our biggest polluters and the biggest fossil fuel polluter in the world. Thank you.
You know, there's some things me and Jack disagree on, but I'm glad that we both are agreed that RBC needs to go. Before RBC took over our beautiful space next to the dining hall, it was a student lounge which was open 24/7. And for some of my students here, which are in STEM, and you get annoyed that the library closes at 2 a.m., I feel you, because having a 24/7 study space is really nice. So I really want to echo his statement in ensuring that RBC needs to go, and that when their lease is set to expire next year, the university does not renew their lease. The university has also committed to divestment by 2030, and they have not provided any updates to us on how they're going to achieve this. So if I'm elected as president, I really ensure that the university is more transparent about how they're going to achieve divestment by 2030, as that's in 5 years. So I think it's really important that we get tangible micro goals as how we're going to achieve this. I also want to work with the sustainability in order to have a stronger connection between the different environmental groups on campus. I know that, for example, climate justice on our campus has played a large role in getting the university to commit to divestment. And I think there's a lot of beauty that can be found in collaboration, and the Sustainability Center has an amazing coordinator, amazing team, so I want to work with them in order to strengthen our connections with the different groups on campus which are advocating for climate justice, as I think we can leverage the university much stronger if we approach them as a strong group, and I believe that we have the amount of students who care about this on campus. I think it's just about fostering those connections in order to be able to approach them with a strong advocate base. I also think sustainability includes strong public transport, which this year has not been the best example of, with the increase in the O train, which really sucks waiting for the O train in the freezing weather for 10 minutes. So I want to continue working with the amazing advocacy commissioner, Alex, in order to lobby the city of Ottawa to hopefully reverse that. But also I think we can also increase other ways of sustainable transportation within the union. So for example, we have Bike Co-op, which was created 10 years ago. However, most students don't know what Bike Co-op is because it's in lease. And I think that just goes to show that whilst UOSU has a very strong presence centrally on campus, I think we can expand our presence to other areas. For example, we have Lee's campus, where most students, when you go do a class talk there and I ask them, do you know what UOSU is? Like, on a good day, 20% of the class will know. So I think that just goes to show we have a really good reach, but that reach needs to expand FSS. And I think we've done a good job in the past couple of years. We're coming a long way, but there's still a long way to go. So I think sustainability, that we have a lot of ways to do it, and I think there's a lot of ways to go about it. But yeah, thank you.
You guys are good to just share that one now. Yeah.
Ok. Le syndicat a annoncé juin dernier la distribution des 4 anciens services, dont le centre du bilinguisme, le service de raccompagnement, le centre multifoie et le centre d'entraide. Comment comptez-vous combler le vide laissé par la dissolution de ceux-ci? Suzanne, tu vas commencer.
Ah oui.
Donc, merci. Je pense que chaque service avait sa indépendante, donc je ne pense pas que je vais faire un commentaire général pour chacun des 4 services. Et je veux aussi reconnaître que les coupures budgétaires, que oui, les étudiants ont voté ça, et je pense que c'est une tâche impossible pour n'importe quel comité exécutif d'être confronté à une tâche de comment réallouer un budget avec une telle coupure. Donc, c'est vraiment une tâche que j'espère que ni moi ni toi, on va avoir à s'occuper. Mais je pense que, par exemple, pour le centre de bilinguisme, je pense que c'est un centre qui nous a coûté beaucoup d'argent et je pense que c'est un centre dont il y a beaucoup de duplicatifs à notre université. Par exemple, que ce soit le centre de Julien Couture ou que ce soit IB. Mais je pense aussi que quelque chose qui rend notre francophonie à l'Université d'Ottawa vraiment unique, et c'est vraiment, en tant que personne j'ai grandi en France, après j'ai déménagé en Allemagne, j'ai perdu ma connexion avec la langue française, mais je pense que je l'ai retrouvée à cette université et je pense qu'elle est vraiment spéciale, la francophonie, à cette université parce qu'elle est tellement diverse. Il n'y a pas juste des franco-ontariens, il n'y a pas juste des Québécois. Vraiment, 22% des étudiants à l'Université d'Ottawa sont des étudiants ou des étudiants internationaux. Donc vraiment, je pense que cette diversité, c'est vraiment une force de notre université. Donc pour moi, une francophonie à cette université, c'est une qui est diverse. Donc je ne veux pas réimplémenter un centre de bilinguisme ou un centre de la francophonie, mais plutôt je veux soutenir les différentes associations internationales qui font vraiment rayonner la francophonie sur notre campus, parce que c'est grâce à eux que j'ai redécouvert ma connexion avec la langue française. Et je pense que vraiment, pour que la francophonie est forte et durable, je pense qu'on peut juste trouver ça dans nos communautés et dans nos associations culturelles qui font vraiment rayonner la francophonie. Tandis que, par exemple, au service de raccompagnement, je pense que la sécurité des étudiants est quelque chose qui est très important pour moi, et que même si j'ai travaillé dans 2 services, c'est vraiment quelque chose que j'essaie d'implémenter dans toutes mes tâches que je fais au travail. Donc, j'aimerais bien réimplémenter un programme de marche sécuritaire. Je pense que le service de raccompagnement nous a coûté 70 000 $ par l'année et je pense que c'est pas un chiffre qu'on peut réimplémenter face au budget recrutaire. Mais je pense qu'en tant que coordinatrice, j'ai vu comment ce centre opère et je pense que je suis aussi dans une bonne position pour dire qu'on n'a pas besoin de tellement d'argent, parce que vraiment le travail qui a été majorité fait, c'est fait par des bénévoles. Je pense que ceci s'applique pour beaucoup de nos services, que ce soit à la banque alimentaire, que ce soit au centre des ressources féministes. Donc je pense que si je suis élue, je veux réimplémenter un service avec une coordinatrice ou coordinateur qui supervise les activités.
Bonjour et oui, encore et merci pour la question. Avant que je fasse comme Suzanne et je parle au sujet de chaque centre propre et son rôle et comment on peut répliquer ses services, je pense qu'il est très important de nous situer dans la situation financière et politique que nous avons été l'année dernière. L'année dernière, il y avait les commentaires des étudiants sur toutes nos communications sur les médias sociaux nous disaient une chose, que le syndicat dépense trop d'argent sur les services que pas assez d'étudiants utilisent. C'est un grand problème et ça a mené à des coupures qui, selon moi, ont eu un impact très endommageant pour nos étudiants. Pour que ceci n'arrive pas encore, pour qu'on puisse continuer à combattre le sentiment que le syndicat ne fait pas assez pour les étudiants, on doit faire certain que le syndicat réinvestisse son argent dans les services, dans les programmes et dans les clubs que les étudiants utilisent à chaque jour. Seulement en faire ceci, est-ce qu'on peut être certain qu'une autre coupure ne va pas arriver et qu'on ne devra pas couper nos services excellents comme le Centre de ressources féministes, le Centre RISE, la Banque alimentaire, etc. Quand ça vient à réoffrir les services coupés dans le budget dernier, je vais aussi parler du bilinguisme. Quand ça vient au bilinguisme, il y a encore, même sans le centre, il y a encore beaucoup d'initiatives que le syndicat peut prendre pour restaurer les services à faire. Premièrement, je pense que le syndicat doit offrir des incentives financiers à tous nos clubs sur le campus s'ils font des événements en français, si leurs documents sont tous disponibles publiquement en français et s'ils ont un exécutif proprement bilingues. Je pense qu'avec cette incentive financière, on peut vraiment promouvoir le bilinguisme sur le campus. Deuxièmement, nos associations étudiantes dans plusieurs facultés sont comprises de beaucoup d'étudiants majoritairement anglophones. Pour combattre ici, je pense que le syndicat doit doubler son budget de traduction et offrir ce service à toutes nos associations étudiantes pour que tous leurs événements, toutes leurs communications se fassent en français comme ce qui est nécessaire pour un groupe d'étudiants qui est 30% francophone. Quand il vient au Foot Patrol et au concept des marches sécuritaires, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec Suzanne. Il y a une façon qu'on peut réintroduire ce service pour un quart du prix avant et utiliser le reste de cet argent pour investir dans la naloxone sur le campus, dans faire la revendication pour supporter VCERT, notre groupe de bénévoles en crise, pour les aider, pour les relâcher des limites que l'université a mises sur eux, pour les retourner aux étudiants et pour accélérer le processus pour combattre nos programmes de drogue, nos programmes de sécurité sur le campus. Et je pense qu'avec toutes ces initiatives, on peut restaurer le même service à un prix beaucoup moins élevé qui montre qu'on est en contact avec les besoins des étudiants et qu'on écoute aux étudiants qui nous disent. Merci.
I think you're going to go first next.
So continuing on, we have OC Transpo pushing for an illegal fare increase on the UPass. Many students are concerned about the long-term affordability of the program. If costs continue to rise, do you believe the UPass program can remain viable? And how will you work to ensure the students have access to affordable transit? Jack, you can start us off.
Absolutely. And I'll say right now that there is despite what the city might say, what our counselors might say, there is no legal precedent or case for them to raise our UPass fees. The only way that can be done would be administered by the university, who through our advocacy that we've done through the presidency's office has already assured us that they will not oversee this hike, and through a referendum on students, and I don't know about you guys, I cannot imagine myself voting on a referendum to raise the UPass fee for service that, let's all be honest, has gone way downhill since we started at university here. So first of all, there is no case, there is no world where the UPass, as it's currently constructed, sees its fees increased. That being said, that does lead us down a path where if the city still feels like they need to hike prices on students, we might see a world in which they take action to undermine the UPass program in its entirety. In this case, not only must we stand up and defend our legally binding contract, and I think we have a great team led by our advocacy commissioner, Alex Stratus, to do so. I'd be very happy to support those initiatives. But it's also so important that we turn our attention away and we start promoting other affordable options. The EquiPass is another program run by the City of Ottawa that has not yet been affected by the cuts and the hikes that the seniors pass and the student pass has suffered. I think by promoting this, by using our market service to promote the EquiPass, which is a program that would save money for at least 50% of all of our students, we can promote alternative options. That being said, this is not a sign that we need to give up on our advocacy to keep our UPass the way it is. Students pay a very fair amount right now. They have seen their services cut, they've seen their services diminished, and they don't deserve to have their fees go up for worse service. That being said, we can promote other ways of transport on campus. The bike co-op is a great example of this. But we have done, UOSU historically, and I do believe it's been better this year, has not done a good job of promoting its services through our marketing and through our communications. Through investing in these departments, we can let students know that there are different ways to get around available to them on campus, and that they can embrace those options as well. I think, though, when we get the broader point, is that we are seeing a political landscape right now where our provincial government feels like they can come at us when it comes to hiking the fees for international students, cutting down how many international students come to our university. The federal government is doing similar measures when it comes to sort of attacking our international student community, and our municipal government feels as though it can get away with tearing up our legal agreements. This cannot be allowed to stand. We have those three governmental bodies have elections in the next year and a half. It is so important that the UOSU, as a body, as a representative, as an advocacy body of 40,000 university students, meets with every candidate who wants your votes, who meets with every candidate who wants to talk about affordable transit, about affordable housing in our riding, in our area, and make sure that if they want support from students, that they make clear commitments to us on transit, on housing, on lowering costs. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I agree. I think it's really not pleasant, I'm going to say, that the City of Ottawa wants to make students pay more for worse service. The O train times have increased, the buses are coming less frequent. So many routes in the City of Ottawa have received cuts to them, and I think both the UPass benefits OC Transport immensely. U Ottawa students every year give about OC Transport $19 million in revenue, and Carleton University as well with about $12 million. So I think when you rely on university students for such a large share of your revenue, you should, if you're increasing the fees, at least make sure that it's in legal manner. No one likes fees when they're increased, so especially not if it's in a legal manner. I don't think anyone wants to use student money in order to sue the City of Ottawa, but I think if it gets there, it gets there. I think this is an initiative which has been really, I've loved to see the advocacy that the University of Ottawa Students' Union has done on this and the open letter that was sent to the city. And I think it was really nice to see that we had the support of the university on this, but also that we had the support of Carleton University. And I think if we continue pushing back, we can hopefully avoid this. But I think at the end of the day, if the City of Ottawa proceeds with this illegal increase, I think we will have to use student money in order to sue them.
All right, now we will switch our moderators for a brief second. Take a minute. There is water in the back. Collect yourselves, and we will come back here in like 2 minutes.
Donc le taux de vote des étudiants et étudiantes aux élections du syndicat dépasse rarement les 5%, jamais les 10%. De plus, plusieurs postes exécutifs restent vacants après les élections. Comment est-ce que vous expliquez ce faible intérêt des étudiants et étudiantes pour la politique étudiante et comment comptez-vous y remédier? On va commencer avec Suzanne.
Je pense que c'est une très bonne question parce que c'est vraiment aussi une question que je me suis posée pendant la dernière semaine. Comment est-ce que j'engage le plus d'étudiants possible? Donc je pense déjà qu'on voit quelle faculté vote et quelle faculté ne vote pas. Je pense que déjà c'est ça. Désolée. Je pense qu'on peut déjà faire des efforts là, assurer que vraiment le syndicat, comme j'ai déjà dit dans une de mes réponses précédentes, que le syndicat est vraiment présent de toutes nos facultés et que tous nos étudiants savent quels services existent pour eux parce que le nombre de fois que, par exemple, cet été, j'ai fait un triathlon et après mes amis disent « Oh, mais c'est pas vraiment cher un vélo. » Et après, je suis comme « Oh, je vais t'expliquer le bike co-op. » Genre, c'est vraiment... Je suis le numéro un fan, mais c'est vraiment, genre, on a vraiment des services fantastiques, mais je pense que comme déjà, on les a tous les deux déjà dit, ces services ont vraiment un manque de visibilité. Donc, je pense qu'on a vraiment travaillé sur une visibilité plus grande. Et je pense que dans les 2 dernières années, on a vraiment fait des efforts en ce qui concerne notre visibilité sur les réseaux sociaux. Donc, je pense que beaucoup... des gens ont remarqué ça, que ce soit le service ou le compte principal du syndicat étudiant, mais je pense qu'on peut aussi travailler sur notre présence en personne. Par exemple, pendant la semaine en septembre, où on peut être vraiment présent dans toutes les différentes facultés. Aussi, parfois, je pense que même moi, j'oublie qu'on a un campus à Lise. Et après, je me dis, oh, vraiment, c'est vraiment un bâtiment sympa. Donc, je pense que vraiment, il faut se rendre compte qu'on est un grand campus et qu'il faut vraiment être présent partout dans le campus et qu'on a une présence forte sur les réseaux sociaux. Mais je pense qu'il faut vraiment s'assurer que c'est notre responsabilité, que nous, on va chez les étudiants et pas que les étudiants vont chez nous. C'est les étudiants qui payent les frais pour le syndicat étudiant. Donc, je pense aussi qu'on prend en considération que c'est notre responsabilité d'aller voir les étudiants, présenter notre service aux étudiants, qu'est-ce qu'on peut faire pour les étudiants. Et je pense qu'aussi, à la fin de la journée, il faut aussi réfléchir à qu'est-ce qui affecte chaque étudiant parce que je pense que c'est important qu'on a vraiment des bons programmes au syndicat étudiant. Mais après la fin de la journée, je pense qu'il y a des problèmes qui affectent chaque étudiant. Et je pense que, par exemple, le problème de frais d'augmentation du pass du transport public, c'est une situation qui affecte chaque étudiant. Donc, je pense que moi et beaucoup de personnes dans cette salle ont été vraiment contentes de voir l'effort que le syndicat a mis dans cette initiative. Et par exemple, j'aimerais bien qu'on voit aussi cette initiative dans les frais de scolarité parce que moi, par exemple, je suis un étudiant qui ne vient pas de l'Ontario. Donc, mes frais de scolarité, je pense qu'ils ont augmenté de 5% et je ne veux même pas parler des frais des étudiants internationaux. Donc, je pense que le syndicat doit vraiment montrer qu'il est dévoué à ces problèmes parce que ces problèmes sont vraiment des problèmes qui affectent chaque étudiant dans chaque faculté et dans chaque problème. Donc, je pense qu'on doit vraiment montrer qu'on est là pour les étudiants et arriver à parler aux étudiants.
Parfait, merci. Oui, merci. Alors, certainement, je pense qu'on regarde l'année passée, on peut voir du progrès. On peut voir 300%, une augmentation de 300% dans notre engagement sur les médias sociaux, mais on sait toujours, comme on a dit, comme du fait qu'on n'a pas assez d'élèves qui se présentent aux élections, que l'engagement et le taux de vote n'est pas même proche où il doit être. Par contre, si on regarde aux manifestations qui ont pris place sur le campus pendant cet été, si on prend en compte qu'il y a des mille des étudiants dans juste quelques jours qui ont signé la lettre du syndicat pour dire qu'ils sont opposés aux augmentations des frais de transport, on peut voir qu'on a un groupe on a des groupes sur notre campus qui sont énormément engagés dans les revendications, dans les droits des étudiants. Ces groupes existent. Il y a des centaines, des milliers d'étudiants qui sont engagés dans ces groupes, mais le syndicat doit faire un meilleur travail pour contacter ces étudiants. Ce qu'on peut voir à travers ces opportunités de revendication, mais aussi à travers les clubs, à travers les associations des étudiants, est-ce que presque chaque étudiant, d'une manière ou une autre, s'est contacté au syndicat? On fait tous les clubs, on donne l'argent à toutes les associations étudiantes. Chaque élève a fait la semaine 101. Presque chaque élève est dans un club ou connaît quelqu'un dans un club. Ce qu'on doit faire, c'est faire un meilleur contact entre le financement qu'on donne au groupe et nous comme organisation. Je pense si les élèves savaient où leur argent allait et comment on les supporte avec cet argent, les taux de participation du syndicat s'augmenteraient beaucoup. Un autre grand problème qu'on a mentionné, c'est le manque des élèves qui se présentent dans les élections du syndicat. Je pense qu'il y a plusieurs solutions qui ont été débattues à nos assemblées générales. Il y a des solutions comme enlever comme règlements du bilinguisme, que je ne supporte pas du tout, mais ça parle d'un programme très vrai où beaucoup de nos étudiants pensent que les rôles exécutifs dans le syndicat ne sont pas pour eux. Une grande raison pour ça, c'est que c'est un rôle à temps plein. Tu dois avoir la stabilité financière, le support financier et de vraiment te financer proprement à travers tes propres études pour prendre la responsabilité de diminuer tes cours à seulement 2 ou 3 par semestre. Je pense que pour plusieurs des rôles exécutifs, on doit donner l'option aux élèves de prendre ces rôles à temps plein ou à temps partiel avant qu'ils prennent le poste. S'ils prennent le temps partiel, ça offre beaucoup plus d'étudiants l'opportunité de participer et on peut utiliser le reste de ces fonds pour agrandir notre équipe. Alors, dans les bureaux comme la revendication, on peut voir beaucoup plus d'élèves qui sont engagés, comme on l'a vu, dans les manifestations l'été dernier, sur le transport, qui peuvent mettre cette énergie dans notre syndicat pour servir dans notre exécutif et pour faire le campus une meilleure place.
Okay, moving on to both your goals for international students. These are tailored to your platform, so I'll ask Jack first and then Suzanne. Jack, you helped International Students Association launch UO Links this past year. Can you tell us what it does and what other goals you have to help international students?
Absolutely. So I was very, very proud of the work I did in conjunction with the International Student Association this year to bring back UO Links. This was a program that used to exist, that the university turned its back on, that served to welcome new international students, new Canadians to campus through a program that assigned them with a mentor who's an upper year international student. Like I said, the university turned its back on this program, and thanks to the advocacy done by our incredible clubs and student groups on campus, especially the International Student Association, we were able to bring it back this year in conjunction with iHouse and with the UOSU Presidential Office. I've been speaking a lot with the International Student Association about how we can move UO Links forward next year, and I think that requires more investment on the part of our union, bringing it more under the fold in about iHouse, having the executive office participate in it more, make sure that it's working the way it needs to. I think there's a bright future, especially as we see rising alienation for domestic students, but also for international students, and feelings of loneliness go up sort of across the country, to bring in these programs that connect people and make people feel like they have a home on campus. When it comes to other plans to support international students, I think a great hub for international student life on campus right now are international student clubs, our cultural clubs. These serve as the backbone for a lot of international student life, especially for new first-year students. But right now, the UOSU relies primarily on volunteer labor to set these clubs up and to put on these events. And yeah, we provide funding, but we don't do nearly enough to incentivize students and international students to put on these clubs and to work as hard as they are. And they deserve much more from us, which is why I would want to introduce scholarships for excellence in club leadership so that our cultural club leaders can see their hard work and their dedication to growing a safe space for international students on campus rewarded. Finally, as I talked about in my last answer, the UOSU has a big problem when it comes to representing students. We rarely have our executive filled. We often have our board of directors stay unfilled. But what we have seen in the last year, and what I've talked to international students across the campus, is that they feel that there is a real room and there is a real place for their voice on the board of directors. I believe that given that the board has recently ruled and passed that we will have one less executive on the board of directors next year, that it is time to use that free spot to give a seat for international students on our board of directors so they could have a role in the governance of this org. This university, especially with the recent policy changes, is not set up for international students to succeed right now. Whenever it comes to not being able to access scholarships, whether it comes to being away from home, whether it comes to affordability problems, they need more representation in our union. And I have a real plan that I believe will add the board seat and will create and will amplify student voices and international student voices on campus while also supporting them through clubs and programs like UO Links. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Suzanne, your platform focuses on advocacy with the university administration, including a tuition freeze for international students. Can you tell us about your goals and how you envision the advocacy process going?
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, I think there's a lot that affect international students, but I think one of the reasons why we have such a large proportion of international students at the University of Ottawa is because of the Francophone exemption that has been granted to international students, and I think that has really given us a very diverse student body, and I think that's one of the, I don't want to say few strengths, but I think it's one of the core strengths of our university. So I think the fact that we're increasing tuition for international students by 7% is really outrageous. So yes, I think it's important to have international student representation at the board. However, in order to have international students run for things, we first of all need to have them here. And if we're increasing tuition by 7%, I think we're going to see a very high decrease in international students at the University of Ottawa, students which have contributed so much to our student body. And I'm glad we're on the same page about this. I am the #1 fan of international student associations. I think they have put on amazing events. Their events have more turnout than most of the events that UOSU services organize. So I'm like, how do you guys do it? Because please teach us. And I think we really can, there's really a lot of value in working with these international student associations in order to create the best events possible. But I think a lot of work is also in setting up these students up for success when they arrive. I think when they arrive, there's so many challenges that they're confronted with, challenges which start at the airport when you're waiting for your study permit. So I think we can do a lot of work, for example, in supporting financial literacy, as I think there's a lot of challenges when you come from abroad and there's a different currency, a different financial system. So I want to work to set up workshops for how to transfer money from abroad. I know we already do tax clinics with Casey Consulting, and that's an initiative that I really want to carry. But right now we're only offering these tax clinics to around 300 students. So I want to increase the amount of students that we're offering these clinics to. And I think when we talk about the lack of people running for election, I think a big part of that is that there's no international students running for election, and I think adding a board seat is a good idea. But I think we should also be working on increasing international students running for their individual faculties, because I think the implication of having to create a board seat for them, I think it's setting the tone that international students won't run for positions within their faculties, that they won't run for FSS positions, that they won't run for engineering positions. But I think this union is for every single undergraduate student, so I think we have a lot of work to do to make them feel welcome. But I think we do that by catering to their needs, and their needs are financial literacy, their needs are support on arrival, and I think it's working with the associations in order to provide them with resources, as they can really provide them with a strong community. And I think when you're moving across an ocean, I think that makes a very big difference.
Donc nous allons passer maintenant au message final. Donc vous aurez tous et toutes 1 minute 30 pour faire passer un message final.
So we're going to move on to closing statements, final messages to the student body. You each have 1 minute and 30 seconds. We will start with Jack.
Absolutely. Merci encore pour avoir mis en place cet événement extraordinaire. When I look at the work we've done and the work that I've done in the last year and a half at the Ottawa Students' Union, I'm incredibly proud of the progress we made. Student engagement is up, funding for the food bank is up, our communications are improved. We have the Emergency Hardship Fund, which is delivering support to students in a way that UOSU has never done before. I think it is so important that we hit the ground running. Transitioning into the presidency is an incredibly hard task. I know, because I was in the office when Delphine Robitaille, our amazing current president, had to do it herself. She is, I believe, the best president that the UOSU has ever had. And even then, it took, thank you. And it still took, and I think it took us both several months to get acclimated to what happens in the goings-on and how to manage the complexities of the presidency. Over the last year, though, I've felt myself getting increasingly prepared. I see as I get closer and closer to the time where Delphine unfortunately leaves us that I feel incredibly prepared to keep it going when it comes to scholarships, when it comes to club funding, when it comes to transparency, when it comes to bringing students together. And I think we've done so much good work, and that last year's budget, though tricky, did set the stage for a period of reinvestment and growth. Now that we are an organization better tailored to student needs. And I think that a big part of that is an app which will bring all students together, made by and for students, that will let all students know. I remember being a first-year student, not feeling like there were clubs that were advertising to me, that were tailored for me, bringing that to students, showing students that on their phone they can find everything that's going on, to bring back the sense of community that this campus had before the pandemic, and setting as an example for the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. I think one of the one of the underlying messages of the answers that I've given is that I really want to create a student union which serves every single student who is paying for this student, whether they're in law, whether they're in engineering, whether they're in health sciences at least. I think there's a lot of value in working with the different student governments, and it's been amazing to see that happen in the past couple of years, and I hope to continue to build on that. I think we have a long way to go for engagement, but I think we're on the right track, and I think a lot of the work that the union does, it's through its services, it's through its club, and it's through its RSG, so I want to continue to collaborate with these. I think it's been really nice to see what's been done in the past year or 2 years, and I think we really need to work on that. But I also think I want to really work on volunteer appreciation, as one of the things that I've learned in the union is the amount of unpaid labor that goes into some of the amazing output and all of the student life on campus, whether it's in recognized student governments, whether it's volunteers and services. So I think I really want to appreciate everyone and ensure that everyone feels that they have a space in the union. Thank you.
Okay, we're gonna move on to questions from the audience. We have a variety of different kinds of questions because we had our online comments and comments from you in the room. So just give us a moment to organize our thoughts and then we'll get started with that.
Okay, I'm thinking, so Suzanne, in
Okay, so thank you for your patience. The way that we're going to do this, all of our questions ended up being in English. We will read them and translate them for you. You can answer in the language of your choice. And you will have 2 minutes to answer each, okay? And both of you will answer each question. So we didn't get any specific questions. So yeah, I will start.
I'm just gonna
Go ahead.
Donc on va passer aux questions du public. Donc il y aura 5 questions. Toutes les questions ont été posées en anglais, donc on va faire une traduction en direct. Vous aurez tous les deux 2 minutes pour répondre aux questions dans la langue de votre choix.
Okay. Donc, this one here. Oh, they translated it, I see. How do you all intend to incorporate equity into your work as the Equity Commissioner role won't exist next year? Comment comptez-vous intégrer l'équité de votre travail étant donné que le rôle de commissionnaire à l'équité n'existerait pas l'année prochaine? Vous pouvez commencer, Jack, et ensuite Suzanne.
Absolutely. So I think as is, there is a lots of overlap between the role of the presidency and the mandate of equity. A big part of the equity position for a long time at UOSU was human resources, which is also a part of the job that the presidency is heavily involved in. So I think on a very tangible or technical level, that part of the role, as well as running the accessibility caucuses, running the multi-faith, caucuses, are important, tangible things that the rest of the team can take on to make sure that when the board decides to get rid of equity, that nothing falls through the cracks. I think the rationale of the board, which is that all of us need to be promoting equity within the organization, is incredibly important, and I think that is something that we can't just pat ourselves on the back for having said. I think we need to put that into action every day. When it comes to what the Equity Commissioner is leaving behind, both in terms of the budget, the Equity Commissioner, as it stands, has a $30,000 equity budget. That money, in my view, needs to be reinvested into a Safe Walk program to reestablish safe walks on campus for students. This would be an affordable way to fund a Safe Walk program that would make sure that we had a volunteer coordinator to bring back an amazing team of volunteers that can keep campus safe, that can provide naloxone training, and that can make sure that our campus is a more equitable, safe space for everyone. Thank you.
Merci pour la question. Donc, je vais répondre en 2 parties. Premièrement, je vais parler de comment on peut intégrer l'équité dans notre travail. Donc, je pense que, comme mon collègue a dit, je pense que chacun a une responsabilité dans cette organisation d'intégrer l'équité dans nos tâches du quotidien. Mais je pense aussi qu'on a beaucoup de services qui se concernent avec l'équité. Donc, je pense que vraiment, une forte collaboration avec ces différents services peut vraiment être bénéficiaire parce que je pense que, par exemple, on peut faciliter beaucoup d'ateliers en collaboration avec les différents services, comme par exemple, le Centre des ressources féministes s'occupe beaucoup de la prévention de la violence sexuelle. Donc, je pense que c'est vraiment avoir une consultation avec ces services qui représentent beaucoup d'étudiants, comment on peut mieux avoir un meilleur engagement avec ces étudiants. But also, I'm going to quickly speak about the fund that's for the Equity Commissioner. I think $30,000 is a lot, and I'm a numbers girl. I'm an econ major, and I worked at Foot Patrol, so I kind of know how much it would cost to run. More cost-effective, I think that's a word we all love, especially in the face of budget cuts. I think we can run a Safe Walk program whilst also having regular self-defense courses. I want to host a revamped Safe Walk program, so regardless of who you vote for, I think that's one of the things you're getting, whether you want to or not. But I also want to host regular self-defense courses. I've spoken with one of the biggest clubs on campus, the UOSU Boxing Club, and I think we want to work together in order to facilitate that. And yeah, I think a lot of equity is really beneficial when it comes from students, so it's really important for me that a lot of these initiatives are in collaboration with services and a lot of clubs. So yeah, thank you.
Okay, how will candidates go about the re-implementation of important safety programs on campus, specifically for women? We are one of the only universities in Ontario without a safety walk program. Comment allez-vous vous y prendre pour remettre en place d'importants programmes de sécurité sur le campus, en particulier pour les femmes? Nous sommes l'une des seules universités en Ontario à ne pas avoir de service de raccompagnement. Suzanne.
Merci pour la question. Donc, je pense que j'ai déjà touché à quelques points dans ma réponse précédente, mais je veux ramener un programme de marche sécuritaire. I want protection services a couple years ago discontinued self-defense courses, and I don't want to bully protection services and to bring them back. I want the student union to implement these. I think there's benefit in having these organized by the student union instead of protection services. I think if we as a student body organize these, we can ensure that these are more survivor-centered. And trauma-informed, finally, I also think a big part of my advocacy platform is working with the Bernadette Coalition and QP 2626 in order to have a student committee for parenting. A lot of universities have such committees, and we as the University of Ottawa currently don't have one, so I think that there's a lot we can do in that field.
Oui, merci. Comme Suzanne a mentionné auparavant, comme n'importe quel candidat que tu accordes ton vote, il va avoir l'année prochaine un programme de marche sécuritaire. Comme j'ai dit auparavant, je veux investir l'argent du fonds d'équité pour faire qu'on a un employé, qu'on offre une position d'employé où les élèves peuvent avoir le développement professionnel dans le bureau exécutif pour gérer les bénévoles, pour mettre en place un programme de marche sécuritaire pour remplacer, comme on a dit, d'une manière cost-effective, qu'est-ce qui était à faire par Foot Patrol l'année dernière. I think another big part of student safety and women's safety on campus that doesn't get talked about enough is the fact that pre-pandemic, VCERT, our volunteer crisis response team, was run by students for students. This is an essential service that promotes safety on campus, that responds to emergencies, and I think they have seen in the last year especially how under the thumb of the university administration and under protection services, the services they are able to offer to everyone, but especially to women on campus, have been very limited. They are no longer allowed to fully respond to drug calls. Their scope of what they're allowed to respond to has been greatly limited, and I think that we need to start advocacy right now, and I'm very proud of the relationships that I've built in the President's office over the past year, and I think with those positive relationships, especially as we see new turnover, and a new incoming president, having the relationships with the people who work under the president will be hugely important when it comes to shaping this new university president's vision. And I think leveraging that advocacy and those connections that I've made to make sure that VCERT gets reverted back to the union, that it goes back to being by students, for students, and that the students and women on campus decide how their volunteer crisis response team operates and how they are being served, and that it's not Jacques Clement making those decisions, I think is tremendously important. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So as president, okay, apologies because it's written on a sticky note and my eyesight is bad, but as president, you work a lot with internal policies. What experience do you have working with board of directors and the policies that they pass? Comme président, vous travaillez souvent avec les politiques. Donc, quelle expérience avez-vous que vous travaillez avec les conseils d'administration et les politiques qu'ils approuvent? On va commencer avec Suzanne.
Merci. Donc, en tant qu'employé de service, mes interactions avec les directeurs ne sont pas vraiment fréquentes et je pense que mon collègue a plus d'expérience avec ça. Mais parce que je pense que je suis une des premières candidates qui se présente aux élections présidentielles qui n'a pas d'expérience avec ça. Mais je pense que j'ai d'autres expériences au sein de notre syndicat étudiant qui, whilst not equal to experience working with the board directors, is not negligible. And I think there's a lot of value also having someone run for elections who's worked in the services and who's worked with the union, like the union that's unionizing for UOSU employees. So I think, so my experience is mostly dealing with the policies that they implement or submitting my report to the service committee and working with them in order to ensure that services can provide the best possible output for students.
Absolutely. So when it comes to how I would navigate internal policies, this might be a boring answer, but I would keep doing what I've been doing in this past year because I've written several of them. I've passed several of them, whether looking at the university's ethical investment framework, which is something that I wrote, that is making sure, that is working to make sure that all student reserves, that all student investments are used and are invested to grow the university's resources, to alleviate the burden and to reinvest in our services and take that burden off of just student fees, but while doing it in a way that does not support companies that engage in anti-Indigenous and any anti-Indigenous activities that don't comply with the stated political positions that our members have voted on and passed through our general assemblies. I think it's a tremendously important internal motion that I've passed. Also, I think the executive code of conduct until Delphine and I took over the president's office. There was a real sense of lack of transparency and lack of accountability, and the board of directors code of conduct, what we assume of our volunteer directors, was not being applied to our executives. I'm very proud of the work I did to write that and to get that passed so that every executive is held to the same standard that our students, our directors, and our volunteers are. I think that's a tremendously important initiative. When it comes to working outside of committees, because obviously these motions have to go through the respective committees first, and working with the board of directors in general, I think maybe one of the most formative sort of experiences of my time at UOSU thus far has been over the summer in the face of the university cracking down on the students' right to protest vis-a-vis the encampment. I think that the experience I had, which was Delphine and I and our advocacy team writing the statements, writing how we wanted to advertise, how we wanted to stand up for students, giving that to the board for their review, and then working on the fly with the board, receiving board feedback in due time, and adapting the statement to make sure that it represented the democratic will of students, that it was what their elected representatives wanted, and to make sure that we were including the will of all students in our statements on such a contentious issue. I'm very proud of the work I did. I'm very proud of the work I did with our great directors, and I hope to continue to do that work next year.
The impending closure of the Garderie Bernadette Child Care Center was decided without the consultation of the students, workers, or the broader community. What will you do as president to ensure meaningful consultation processes with the school administration? La fermeture imminente de la garderie Bernadette a été décidée sans la consultation des étudiants et étudiantes, des employés ou la communauté. En tant que président ou présidente, qu'allez-vous faire pour assurer une consultation, un procès de consultation avec l'administration universitaire? Jack.
Merci beaucoup pour cette question. Alors, je pense pour les gens dans l'audience, c'est important de dire que le Centre Bernadette n'est pas un service du syndicat, mais c'est en fait un service offert par l'université qui, comme on a juste dit, ont décidé de couper sans processus approprié du tout. Alors, je pense que notre vraie réponse ici doit être en termes de revendication. I think it has to be, our responses has to be in terms of our advocacy efforts. I think I have a great proven track record of standing up to the university in terms of helping with the negotiations every time the university has already decided, and we know we like to do this, we know they like to do this a lot, unjustly without due process, forcing their will upon students. I think a great example of this was deferral fees. They introduced a program, they bragged about it, they told all the other universities, look at us, look how good we're doing. And then when they saw there was a little extra work for them, they decided that it was time to pay gap and decided that only students who could afford it could defer their exams. I was very proud of the work I did with the university's team to have that number to make sure, and obviously we would have liked to get all the way to zero, and I want to continue that work next year, but to reduce that number by half, I think is something that I'm very proud of. Like I said, negotiating with the university when it comes to food insecurity on campus, in terms of getting more funding, more external funding from them for the food bank, I think I have a proven track record of dealing with the university, of making sure that students' will is represented, and I think Suzanne earlier made a great point that there is so many students who are affected by the Bernadette Center closing. I think we need to stand up for them even though it's not our service, and we need to take that same approach that I've had in the last year to make sure that the university, especially with the changeover in the president, complies with what they've agreed on, what they've told us they can do, and make sure that they're living up to the expectations of their students. Thank you.
Thank you, and whilst you're correct in saying that the Bernadette Coalition is not one of the services offered to students by the student union, I want to point out that at the Feminist Resource Center, we work closely with the Bernadette Coalition, but also CUPE, but also OPIRG, in order to lobby against the closure of the Bernadette Center, as I think daycare is something paramount, and we are already one of the few universities which don't have a Safe Rock program. I also don't want us to be one of the few universities which don't have a daycare on campus. So earlier today, I met with Natalie, who's leading the Bernadette Coalition, and I talked about how we as an executive can better support them. So I think at the FRC, we already held events in collaboration. And I think one of the things I love about the Bernadette Coalition and that in general is that they work with different unions on campus. So whether it's CUPE, whether it's the students union in general, but also I think a lot of parents which are students are graduate students. So I think in the past year, our relationship with GSAT has become really strained. And graduate students are no longer able to use the food bank. And whilst I know none of you are probably graduate students, I think student parenting is something that mostly affects graduate students. So I think we can approach the university in a more stronger and more effective way if we work together with GSAT, as this is an issue which affects not only undergrad students but also graduate students. And I think we're stronger in lobbying the university if we approach together. I think advocacy works, but in order for advocacy to work, we need to work together. And I think on this specific issue, we need to work together with the graduate student in order to prevent the closing, or at least have a physical space on campus for childcare. As I think this is one of the issues that often gets overlooked, but I think still affects a lot of the students on campus. At the FRC, there's countless times where individuals come to us and ask us questions about the Bernadette Center, and oftentimes the news I can provide to them are not great. So it's an issue that I'm really passionate about, and I want to bring the Bernadette Coalition to a more exec level. And over the past 2 weeks, not 2 weeks, but since the start of the year, I've worked closely with the Advocacy Commissioner, Alex, who's recently started joining the meeting for the Bernadette Coalition. So I think we're on the right track.
Last question, dernière question. Can you both expand on your experience in 101 week and tell us about your plan for 101 week, especially if there's no student life commissioner? Est-ce que vous pouvez plus détailler votre expérience dans la semaine 101 et nous raconter vos plans pour la semaine 101, surtout s'il n'y a pas de commissaire à la vie étudiante? On va commencer avec Suzanne.
Merci pour la question. Donc, j'ai pas vraiment envie de faire la semaine 101 commissaire à la vie étudiante. Donc, je pense qu'une des priorités au début de mon mandat va être d'embaucher une commissaire pour la vie étudiante, parce qu'en ce moment, personne ne se présente pour ce poste. Mais mes expériences précédentes pendant la semaine 101 was that I was facilitating Be Present to Consent in collaboration with the 101 Week coordinator. So Be Present to Consent is the sexual violence prevention training that is facilitated by the FRC. So here I work closely with the 101 Week coordinator, but also with the different RSGs in order to facilitate this training and to answer to students when they're there. But other than that, it was just being coordinator of the Feminist Resource Center, so it was welcoming students on campus. I also organized Take Back the Night, which is an event where we welcome different partners in the community, as I think one of the things I've learned in the student union is the value of collaboration. So during Take Back the Night, we had different community partners, different nonprofits come together and showcase the different resources that are available to students as 101 week, all the way to homecoming. Panda at our university is a red zone in which cases of sexual violence are unfortunately harder. So I would really like to work with, well, if I'm elected, I won't be FRC coordinator anymore, but I would want to work closely with the future FRC coordinator in order to ensure that Be Present to Consent continues to take place, as I think this is only the second year where it's taken place, but I think it's an initiative that's really important. But also, this training currently is only given to students which buy 101 week kits, which are really expensive. But I think there's also a lot of value in making this training available to club executives, as I'm kind of tired of having these club executives come to me after something's happened, and I'm like, oh, if we had done this training with you, we could have avoided a lot of harm. So I think that's one of the key things that even if I don't win, I want to work on, is making sexual violence prevention training mandatory for club executives and leaders on campus.
I would like to echo what Suzanne said right off the bat. There is no situation in which we approach next 101 week without a student life coordinator. As we know, there was also in the last general election, no one presented themselves for the role of student life commissioner, and thankfully we had a great team ready by the time that 101 week came around. There is no way that we will not have a student life commissioner by next 101 week, but I think what is very important is how we select that student life commissioner. It is such an important role. One of the key components is serving as an ambassador from the UOSU to our student associations. The UOSU funds 101 week, we support, we put on events like the ones that were listed by Suzanne, but really 101 week is mostly organized by our student associations on campus. And I've been talking with them over these last few weeks, these last few months. I'm very happy to have the support of 7 or 8 of their presidents, who I had the honor of working with during the past 101 week, supporting them, supporting their endeavors, both as a guide in my second year, as a volunteer, as well as an employee working on the project this past year. What I've heard from these student association presidents is that they want more of a voice, they want more consultation when it comes to who our student life commissioner is. This is a decision that has to be made by the board, but also needs to be made through consultation through an application process with our various student association presidents. I think that's very important, but it will help, being in part of the process will help improve the communication between UOSU and the student associations, which I've repeatedly heard by every RSG I've talked to is the single biggest problem. I think bolstering the student life team through our applications that we worked on very recently to Canada Summer Jobs, as well as co-ops through the university, will bolster the student life team. We'll let them take on more of the technical work so that our new student life commissioner can focus on taking the brunt of the communications, of working with our student associations. I'm very proud to have their support, and I think that together with a new student life commissioner, on peut avoir le meilleur semaine 101 qu'on a déjà eu auparavant. Merci beaucoup.
All right, that was it for our questions. We're welcoming Andrew Willimack back. And Camille.
Should we sit here?
Okay, thanks so much for the audience for showing up today and sticking around, which is good. We had a couple of recesses that you could have snuck out the door. And thanks to Suzanne and Jack for truly making this what I hope is a constructive night, a bilingual night. Let's carry this momentum not just into the elections when voting starts at midnight, but also into future elections and future debates going forward. And interest in student governance in general. There is a feedback form about this event in the Fulcrum's Instagram bio, so if you really hated the host and want a new one, I have made sure that the form is anonymous and I will never know. And once again, thanks to Camille and Laurotan for making this a bilingual event. Yeah.
Oh, we don't need this one anymore. Merci beaucoup à tout le monde d'être venu ici, que ce soit en ligne ou en personne. Nous, on va faire une petite vidéo récapitulative pour ceux notamment qui sont arrivés après ou pour ceux en ligne qui n'ont pas pu se connecter dès le début. Donc, c'est ça. Et puis, on espère qu'on pourra refaire cet événement l'année prochaine. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée à tout le monde.